Protecting me from what, Zaire? From you? Your world? The words came out sharper than she intended, laced with frustration. You think you can just intimidate everyone into submission? This isn't a game. He inhaled deeply, his expression momentarily softening as the flicker of understanding crossed his features. It's not a game when lives are at stake, Wrenna. You have no idea what's out there, what I'm up against. You're right. I don't, she replied, her voice dropping in intensity, revealing a vulnerability she tried desperately to conceal. But I know what it feels like to live in fear, and I won't let you drag me back into that darkness. The wind outside picked up, rattling the windows, mirroring the storm brewing between them. She shivered slightly, and Zaire stepped closer, his gaze searching hers, an unspoken plea flickering in his eyes. I'm trying to do what's best for you, for us. Us. How can there be an us when you've built your empire on secrets and lies? Her heart raced, and she struggled to maintain her composure. Do you really think I can just overlook the fact that I'm nothing but a pawn in your dangerous game? His expression hardened, and he moved closer still, the space between them charged with unspoken tension. This isn't a game. This is survival, not just yours, but mine too. The clash of feelings hung in the air, the gravity making it harder to breathe. An unsteady silence enveloped them, the tension snapping like a taut wire. Wrenna could hear the heavy rain beginning to fall against the roof, a soothing backdrop to their chaos. So what now? She crossed her arms defensively, feeling the dread settle deep within her. Do you expect me to trust you when you refuse to show me who you truly are? Trust is earned, Zaire replied, his voice low, almost begrudging. He took another step forward, closing the distance, and for a brief moment, the world around them faded. There was only the visceral connection they shared, pulsing with unresolved passion. Let me show you, Wrenna. Let me take you into my world, but you must trust me. Wrenna felt the walls around her heart crack as she wrestled with the walls she had built. And when I see the truth, Zaire, when it shatters everything I thought I knew, then we'll face it together, he said, his voice filled with a sincerity that tugged at her resolve. But I can't do this without you. The rain hammered harder, drowning their doubts for a heartbeat, leaving only the sound of their breaths mingling in the charged space. I don't know if I can embrace your chaos, she murmured, vulnerability creeping into her tone. Zaire captured her gaze, unwavering. Embrace me, Wrenna. We're both bound by our pasts, but together we can change our fates. As the storm continued to rage outside, a flicker of something hopeful ignited deep within her. Perhaps trusting him was her first step toward embracing the unknown, both terrifying and exhilarating. Just then, a sudden crack of thunder echoed, shaking the windows, and for the first time, it didn't feel like something to fear. Scene 12. Power struggles. The amber glow of the setting sun filtered through the stained glass of the mansion's grand hallway, casting intricate patterns on the polished wooden floors. The air was thick with tension, as palpable as the scent of the aged oak surrounding them. Wrenna leaned against the wall, crossing her arms in a defensive posture as Zaire paced in front of her, his brow furrowed with concern. Do you even understand what you're stepping into? Zaire's voice cut through the silence like a knife, echoing off the walls. He stopped abruptly, turning to face her, the intensity in his dark eyes promising both danger and allure. Wrenna straightened, her heart racing. You think I don't see it? The whispers, the glances when they think I'm not watching. I know there are layers to your world, Zaire. Just tell me what I'm dealing with. Her voice trembled with a mix of frustration and fear. For a moment, Zaire hesitated, the weight of his decisions hanging heavily between them. The distant sounds of muffled laughter from the adjoining room belied the storm brewing within the tension of their dynamic. That's just it, Wrenna, he said, his voice dropping to a near whisper. You really have no idea. Before she could respond, a loud crash echoed from the kitchen, instantly pulling their attention away. Zaire's body became electric. He sprang into action, eyeing the door with a predator's instinct. Wrenna barely regained her composure. What was that? Zaire clenched his jaw, a flash of anger crossing his features. Good question. Stay here. He shot her a look that brooked no argument as he moved toward the kitchen, but Wrenna's instinct put her on his heels. As they stepped through the door, they found themselves at the epicenter of chaos. Zaire's associate Marcus stood over a pile of scattered ingredients from the pantry, a sheepish grin plastered on his face, masked by a few spilled tomatoes. Oops, Marcus chuckling nervously, his hands raised in mock surrender. We were just testing a new recipe. He shot a glance at Zaire that was far from apologetic, more jubilant, as if this was routine mischief. Your idea of cooking is a little too explosive for my taste, Zaire snapped, but the irritation in his tone was underscored by an involuntary smirk. Not my fault if you can't handle a little heat in the kitchen, Marcus retorted, winking at Wrenna, who couldn't help but chuckle at the absurdity. Zaire rolled his eyes, but the tension from moments before had dissipated slightly, allowing Wrenna to feel more grounded. We're in a delicate situation here, Marcus, Zaire continued, his voice dropping to a serious note, clearly restoring the gravity of their predicament. You can't treat this like another game. There are far worse consequences that could emerge from this while I'm trying to safeguard. What's your angle, Zaire? Came the voice of Donna, a sharp-tongued lieutenant standing at the doorway. She crossed her arms, her critical gaze flicking back and forth between the two men. Are you protecting our operation or saving her? A charged silence settled in, thickening the air with uncertainty. Wrenna glanced at Zaire, his expression tightening, as if he were a fortress ready to close its gates. She needed to break that tension, anything, to prevent this from spiraling. Excuse me, Wrenna intervened, her voice steady though her heart raced. I didn't choose to be a part of this. I want to understand, but if there's danger, real danger, then I deserve to know. Donna tilted her head, intrigued yet cynical. Like he's going to tell you the truth, sweetheart. We're all playing our cards close to the vest here. Trust doesn't come easy in our world. Zaire stepped forward, his eyes locked onto Wrenna's. You want to know how deep this goes? It's life or death for many in my world. Relationships can fracture, alliances crumble. You could end up on the wrong side just by being here. And yet, I'm still here, she countered, her voice firm, clashing against the simmering turmoil. You think I'd back away from the truth just because it's scary? At that moment, a tense silence enveloped them, punctuated only by the stray sounds of laughter filtering in from the other room. Zaire's expression softened slightly, his guard wavering as he observed her fierce spirit. Then we'll face it together, he finally said, the gravity of his tone pulling them both into an uncharted territory of connection. Wrenna felt a swell of determination rise within her, aware that the complexities of his world were about to collide with her own. Bring it on, she replied, a spark of resolve dancing in her eyes, unaware of how close the darkness loomed just beyond their fragile moment. Scene 13. Night of Passion. As the moonlight filtered through the ornate windows of the sprawling Vanderbilt mansion, bathing the library in a silver glow, the air crackled with unspoken tension. Wrenna leaned against the heavy oak desk, her fingers tracing the intricate carvings that had absorbed countless whispers and secrets over the decades. Zaire paced in front of her, his tall figure a silhouette against the flickering firelight, the muscles in his jaw tense. What if we trusted each other more? Zaire's voice cut through the quiet, bearing the weight of his earnest intention. Wrenna's breath caught. What if we're both hiding too much? A silence enveloped them, thick and suffocating, punctuated only by the soft crackle of burning logs and the distant chirping of crickets. The crackling air shimmered with possibility, swirling around them like an unseen force pulling them closer together. She could feel his gaze drilling into her, his piercing eyes a tempest of emotions. They held promises and secrets, shadows of their pasts wrestling for dominance. Wrenna, he said, stepping closer, I need you to understand. I know about the funding, Zaire, Wrenna interjected, her voice steady despite the flutter of anxiety in her chest. You saved me from myself. I shouldn't want to be drawn to you like this. Yet here they were, a space of tension-filled air between them growing ever smaller. Zaire stopped, his expression shifting from determination to something softer, more vulnerable. You're not a burden, he murmured, his voice now akin to a plea. Let me in. Wrenna hesitated, battling the instinct to retreat into herself. She could feel the warmth radiating from him, a heat that lulled her defenses. And what if it's too much, she whispered. It was more than just the dangers of their lives. It was the depth of her vulnerability. He stepped closer still, just an inch, and she felt the quickening of her pulse as their worlds collided. I'll face it all, even your fears, if you can trust that. The air around them shimmered, thick with anticipation. Zaire reached out, his fingers brushing against her arm, igniting a cascade of chills that sparked across her skin. Stay with me, just for tonight. Wrenna's breath hitched as she searched his eyes, seeing layers of longing and a silent promise. She weighed the potential repercussions against the suffocating loneliness that had cloaked her for so long. With a nod almost imperceptible, she took a step closer, closing the gap as they teetered on the precipice of uncertainty and desire. His hand slid from her arm to her waist, grounding her with a gentle, possessive touch. The heat of his palm burned through the fabric of her blouse, awakening waves of feeling she had buried deep. You make it easier to breathe, he said softly, tilting his head as if contemplating the perfect moment. I shouldn't, she began, only for the sentence to die on her lips. No more shoulds, Zaire interrupted, his voice low and earnest. He leaned into her, their breaths mingling in the space between. No more running. In an instant, their lips touched softly, tentatively at first, as if they were testing the waters of a burning current. But the world vanished, the weight of their secrets, the chaos in their lives, all blurred into the background. The kiss ignited with fervor, evolving from tentative caresses to something undeniably fervent. His hands shifted, framing her face with an urgency that matched her spiraling heartbeat. She responded instinctively, deepening the kiss, threading her fingers through his hair, drawing him closer, erasing the distance that fear had erected. It was intoxicating and pure, an elixir of passion that dulled the sharp edges of her worries. Time stretched and contracted, each moment an eternity, leaving only the taste of him on her lips warm and rich, like dark chocolate. She was weightless, caught in a storm of emotions that entwined pleasure with the unsettling weight of reality. But even as they surrendered to the moment, a flicker of doubt whispered in her mind. What would come after? Could they balance the dangerous dance of their intertwined lives? As their kiss lingered, Zaire's fingers gently brushed her cheek, his voice dropping to a husky whisper. Whatever happens, we face it together. Just breathe. The world beyond the mansion faded, just them, two souls entwined in a fragile moment, a beautiful interlude amidst the tumult of life. But in the depths of passion lay uncharted waters, treacherous yet thrilling. Their secrets threatened to resurface, yet for now they floated in a dream, a night of passion that transported them far from the shadows of their reality. Scene 14, an unexpected visitor. The late afternoon sun poured through the tall windows of Wrenna Vanderbilt's inherited mansion, casting long shadows across the ornately carpeted floor. Wrenna stood by the grand piano, her fingers lightly brushing the keys, producing a whisper of music that filled the silence. She gazed out at the sprawling garden, a blend of geraniums and wild roses, memories flooding back like spring rain. Her childhood was stitched together in that picturesque backyard, where laughter once rang out and secrets lay buried beneath the soil. Just as the mood shifted from nostalgia to melancholy, the doorbell chimed, sharp and insistent. Wrenna's heart tripped, an unwelcome echo of anxiety. She had grown accustomed to solitude since inheriting the estate, every creak of the floorboards now a reminder of what was lost and what lay ahead. Wrenna! Zaire Vellore's voice called from the kitchen, laced with his usual confidence. He emerged, wiping his hands on a dish towel. I'll get it. Wait, Wrenna said, a surprising urgency in her tone. Something feels off. It's probably just a neighbor borrowing a cup of flour, or perhaps the postman, Zaire replied with a smirk. He headed toward the door, swaggering with the kind of self-assurance that made hearts race. She followed him, her pulse quickening, sensing the dark energy simmering beneath their newfound bond. The man was a crime boss after all. She couldn't wash away that part of him, no matter how deeply he pulled her in. As Zaire swung the door open, a figure from her past stepped into the sunlight. It was Ava Seabrook, cloaked in a pristine white dress that seemed far too formal for the day. Her smile, typically radiant, felt strained, the shadow of something unsettling flickering beneath her eyes. Wrenna! Ava exclaimed, pulling her into a tight embrace, squeezing the air from her lungs. the scent of lavender mixed with fresh linen, awakening the sweet nostalgia of sleepovers and late-night secrets. "I've missed you." Wrenna stepped back, noting the subtle tremor in Ava's voice. "What are you doing here? It's been ages." "I have news about your family." The phrase hung in the air like fog, dense and foreboding. Zaire's posture stiffened, glancing between the two women, tracking the undeniable tension building. "Family? What kind of news?" Ava shifted, her gaze darting to Zaire, then back to Wrenna. "News that could change everything," she said, her smile faltering slightly. "Can we talk?" "Of course," Wrenna replied, leading the way into the spacious living room, adorned with vintage art, a collection of memories, juxtaposed against the present's uncertainty. As they sat, the weight of the revelation loomed. Ava leaned forward, lowering her voice as if the walls had ears. "I received an anonymous tip about your grandmother's estate. Someone's after it." Wrenna's stomach twisted. "What do you mean? After what?" "Zaire's rival," Ava whispered, the name tumbling from her lips like a curse. "They know the mansion has hidden treasures, a ledger, a gemstone, something that can put them over the top in the criminal world." Zaire's expression hardened, shadows pooling beneath his eyes. "I'll handle it." "Handle it?" Wrenna's voice rose unexpectedly, emotions clashing within her. "I don't want you involved in anything dangerous." Ava's expression reflected disbelief. "Wrenna, this is serious. You can't gloss over the danger. This is your family we're talking about." Anger flickered behind Wrenna's eyes. "Anger won't solve anything, Ava. I thought we were beyond all this drama." "Drama? If you think this is drama, try living with the threat of violence looming over you." Ava shot back, her composure cracking like fragile glass. Zaire moved closer to Wrenna, his hand gently resting against her shoulder, the warmth radiating amidst the brewing storm. "Listen, Wrenna. Ava's right. I won't let anything happen to you. Let me protect you." Wrenna's heart raced, torn between gratitude and confusion. She sensed vulnerability beneath Zaire's tough exterior, a glimpse of the man who understood her fears and aspirations. But the lingering shadow of his past pulled at her instincts, mingling desire with disbelief. "I don't want to bury my head in the sand," Wrenna replied, a hint of defiance sparking. "I want to know the truth about the estate, our family, everything." Zaire's grip tightened slightly, a silent promise echoing in the air. "Then we'll find that truth together, but you have to trust me." Ava broke the heavy silence that followed. "Trust will be a hard currency with what's coming." An unsettling silence enveloped the room, vibrating with tension as they all contemplated the consequences of their choices. Wrenna felt the weight of buried family secrets pressing down, ready to unravel, just like her heart, yearning for the safety Zaire offered, yet dreading the chaos it might usher in. "Then let's face it," Wrenna breathed, determination building like a crescendo. "Together." Scene 15, Layers of Deceit. The sun hung low over Wrenna Vanderbilt's historic mansion, casting golden hues across the old wood-paneled study. Dust motes danced in the light, swirling like secrets held too tightly for too long. Wrenna sat at a long, worn table, its surface marred by generations of familial history. Her fingers brushed the aged leather-bound journal of her grandmother, the pages filled with cursive loops, reflecting a life filled with both joy and sorrow. As she turned the brittle pages, her mind swam with memories of their time together. A small sigh escaped her lips, heavy with nostalgia. Just then, the creak of the door cut through the stillness. Zaire Vellore stepped inside, his presence electrifying the air. His confidence filled the room like the rich aroma of brewing coffee, impossible to ignore. "What treasures are you uncovering today?" he asked, leaning against the doorframe, arms crossed, his dark eyes fixed on her with a mixture of curiosity and something deeper. Wrenna met his gaze, the warmth of his proximity sending a ripple through her. "Just some old memories," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper, the weight of unspoken truths pressing down like the thick velvet drapes hanging in the corners of the room. Zaire pushed himself off the frame and stepped closer, the sound of his leather shoes soft against the hardwood floor. He had a way of commanding a room without uttering a single word. The way he moved, aware but relaxed, held a magnetism that tangled her thoughts. "Memories can be burdensome," he said, tilting his head slightly, inviting her to probe further. In the silence that followed, Wrenna felt the tension shift. "Some are, some aren't," she countered. forcing a smile that felt brittle, like the pages she had just turned. She glanced back down at the journal, her fingers tracing the lined paper, as though seeking comfort in her grandmother's careful handwriting. He moved to her side, close enough that she could catch the fleeting scent of his cologne mixed with a hint of something earthy. Your grandmother was a fascinating woman. Strong, he mused, leaning in to read the squiggly ink. She had a way of writing about love as if it could save you from everything. Wrenna suddenly felt exposed, the walls of the study closing in, as if the journal's secrets had suddenly become her own. Love can't save from the past, Zaire, she said, her voice gaining steadiness. It can hinder you just as much as it can help. Zaire's expression darkened slightly, shadows crossing his face. And you think it's hindering you with me? Because I don't know who you really are, she interrupted, a surge of frustration bubbling to the surface. You're a man of power and secrets. I know that. His demeanor shifted. Now he seemed more like the predator than the protector, the room thick with unspoken tension. But the hardness in his gaze softened, revealing a hint of vulnerability. What am I hiding from you, Wrenna? You're not the only one carrying the weight. Wrenna stood abruptly, her chair scraping back, breaking the moment. She needed distance, a moment to think. Outside, laughter echoed from the garden where her friends had gathered. The crisp air carried bits of chatter, a contrast to the storm brewing inside her. Your friends are waiting, Zaire observed, his tone shifting from heated to almost gentle. They think they know me, she said, moving to the window to peer outside, heart racing. But how can anyone truly know a person when their past is riddled with shadows, Zaire? Because we forge our futures, Wrenna, he said, stepping closer again. If you let the past rule you, you'll lose your chance at something real, something with me. There was a flicker of anguish in his eyes, one that echoed her own struggles. It punctured the air between them, electric and tangible. She turned to him, feeling the gravity of their shared untruths, and yet rooted desire pulled her back. Are we ready for that? She murmured, searching his face, longing for reassurance, but fearful of the unknown. The corners of his mouth tugged up, subtly optimistic. Ready or not, here we are. But you have to trust me, Wrenna. I can't change what I've done, but I can fight for what we could be. The moment hung heavy between them, like the deep shadows cast by the setting sun, each heartbeat amplifying their unvoiced feelings. You don't know what you're asking, she finally whispered, uncertainty lacing her tone. His eyes bore into hers, earnest and fierce. Then show me you're ready to step out of the shadows. As Wrenna considered his words, the laughter from outside began to fade into the background, the study filled with the weight of possibilities. She took a breath, realizing the dance between fear and hope was only just beginning, but she feared that stepping forward might lead them both right into the heart of the storm. Scene 16, Betrayal Strikes. The air in Wrenna's inherited mansion was thick with the scent of fresh-cut lilacs, blooming extravagantly in her grandmother's garden just beyond the grand windows. The sunlight dipped and glanced artfully over the elegant Victorian furnishings, but the warmth of the golden light felt cold against Wrenna's skin. Outside, dark clouds began to gather, signaling a sudden shift, an echo of her internal unrest. Wrenna grasped the edge of the mahogany table, her heart racing faster than the distant thunder rumbling in a storm about to break. Zaire, tossing a towel over his shoulder, leaned against the kitchen counter, his charismatic smile replaced by a stormy frown. Let me help you with that, he offered, motioning toward the remnants of her latest art project, a bold canvas splashed with turbulent blues and whites, evocative of the tempest raging within her. I don't need your help, Wrenna snapped, her voice laced with tension. She hated that the warmth of his proximity made her pulse quicken, even when anger flared beneath the surface. Zaire's brow arched slightly, a hint of challenge in his deep gaze. You've always been stubborn, Wrenna, but we really should talk about last night. The memories of their argument lingered like ghosts between them, and the brightness of love felt overshadowed by doubt. A sudden crash of thunder punctuated the moment, amplifying the weight of his words. There's nothing to talk about, Wrenna retorted, eyes blazing. You can't just swoop in and fix everything with your money and connections, Zaire. That's not how this works. Do you think that's what I was trying to do? He shot back, his voice thick with frustration. You think I wanted you to find out like that? You deserve better. And I thought, what? You thought I'd thank you? You didn't just help me. You buried me in your lies. The bitterness in her voice hung heavily in the air, a lightning strike that illuminated their truth. Zaire stepped forward, the distance shrinking dangerously. If you'd just listen for a moment. She turned away, a flood of emotions gripping her heart. Anger, betrayal, and an undeniable yearning. The patter of rain began, heavy droplets slapping against the window like fists demanding entry. Despite the chaos, a part of her craved the warmth that only he could provide. Stop, she said, her tone softer yet firm, a tentative plea shrouded in tension. You think I can just forget that I've been a pawn in your game? Zaire's face contorted, the vulnerability creeping beneath his hard facade. It was never a game. I protected you. By lying to me? She interjected, unable to mask the hurt rippling through her words. Maybe I don't want protection wrapped in deceit. The kitchen fell into silence, only the drumming of the rain outside offering brief comfort to the tension. Wrenna could feel every fiber of her being pulled toward him, a magnetism that felt both intoxicating and dangerous. Then, without warning, the power flickered, plunging the room into semi-darkness, shadows curling around them like whispers of the past. I did what I had to do for you, Zaire said, his voice low, almost a murmur, sending shivers cascaded through her. You don't know what I risked. Risked, she challenged, exhaling sharply. You risked my trust, you're right. Maybe I don't know what you handle in the dark, but now it's not just about your choices. This is about me, Zaire. The weight of her words pressed upon them, and for the first time, uncertainty crossed his features. Wrenna, I am not just some villain in your story, he pleaded, stepping even closer, his presence unwavering amidst the chaos. You deserve to be happy. I thought I could give you that. Hesitation flickered in Wrenna's heart. She lifted her gaze to meet his, searching for some semblance of truth. The air pulsed with electricity, the storm outside echoing the tumult between them as the raindrops splattered against the window. Each hit a volatile reminder of their crumbling peace. Maybe you thought you were helping, she murmured, grappling with the swirl of emotions. But were you really? The steady gaze of Zaire bore into her, laden with intensity, as if he could peel back the layers and reveal the truth beneath her turmoil. The muscles in his jaw tightened as he fought to bridge the chasm growing between them, the night whispering of peril and desire. I just want you to see that I'm not what you think, he said, the storm outside echoing the thunderous rift between them. Would you stand by while the truth unravels? She asked, the uncertainty wedged deeply in her voice, a thin filigree of hope intertwined with despair. All she knew was that chaos loomed and choices had consequences. Yet amidst it all, she couldn't help but wonder if their lives could intertwine past the dark secrets lurking in the storm. Scene 17, War Within. The evening sky bled into hues of orange and indigo as twilight cloaked the grand Vanderbilt estate, its sprawling grounds bursting with life, laughter, and the muted strains of jazz drifting from the garden party. Inside the mansion, however, a different kind of tension held sway. In the opulent but dimly lit parlor, Wrenna stood beside the flickering fireplace, tracing her fingers over the time-worn mantel. Shadows danced upon her face, mirroring the tempest of emotions swirling within her. Zaire ambled into the room, the faint scent of leather and citrus preceding him. His presence was magnetic, pulling her into an orbit of mixed feelings, intense desire intertwined with crippling fear. She could feel the weight of his gaze. It was both unsettling and exhilarating. Wrenna, he began, his voice rough yet soothing. Are you going to avoid this forever? She turned, her heart racing, caught between wanting to embrace him and the trepidation that gripped her chest. Avoid what? The truth? The past? Or is it the future we should be wary of? Don't make this harder than it has to be. His tone sharpened, confidence warring with vulnerability. You know it won't be easy. I'm not just a man. He hesitated, his words hanging heavy in the space between them. Dangerous? She interjected, her voice steady despite the crackling energy. You're not just dangerous, Zaire. You're lethal. Silence engulfed them, thick and pulsating, rich with what remained unspoken. Zaire took a step closer, the flickering light casting shadows across his chiseled features, his vulnerability glinting like a shard of glass hidden beneath a veneer of strength. "Then why are we still dancing around this?" he breathed, tension crackling through the air. Wrenna's pulse quickened as he reached out, brushing his thumb against her knuckles. Soft yet assertive, it ignited a warmth that spiraled through her entire being. "I can't be the person you want me to be. I have too many shadows lurking in my past, too many wounds that haven't healed." Zaire's eyes darkened, revealing a glimpse of the remorse that overshadowed his bravado. "You think I don't know about shadows? I dance with mine every single day. But you," his voice dropped to a whisper, cracking under the weight of emotion, "you make me want to fight. You make me want to be something different." A heavy pause enveloped them, stretching taut like a bowstring ready to snap. She could hear the muted laughter from the gathering outside, the juxtaposition of joy against their unfolding turmoil only amplifying the stakes. The world seemed to spin, and in that moment, they were two celestial bodies, caught in the pull of each other's gravity. Wrenna stepped forward, her breath hitching at the sight of Zaire's vulnerability laid bare before her. "I'm terrified, Zaire. Not of you, but of what you make me feel. I don't know if I can surrender to this when everything around us is so chaotic." His gaze softened, the tension in his body easing almost imperceptibly. "The chaos is everywhere, but I don't care. I want you. I want this." She hesitated, feeling the weight of his honesty resonate deep within. In that moment, every argument, every doubt condensed into an electric pulse that bridged the distance between them. Their lips were a breath apart, the air thick with possibility and longing. Then, without thought, Wrenna leaned forward, surrendering to the moment. Their lips met, tentative at first, a soft exploration that ignited a fierce fire within her. It was a collision of warmth and need, breath mingling and hearts racing in rhythm, transcending words as barriers melted away. Zaire's hands found her waist, pulling her closer, deepening the kiss as he groaned softly against her mouth. Every flicker of their lips conveyed years of untold stories, a raw connection that begged to be unleashed. The shadows around them faded into insignificance as they lost themselves in each other, drowning in the depths of shared emotion. As their kiss broke, they lingered close, foreheads touching, breaths mingling. A sigh escaped Wrenna's lips, painted with the colors of her uncertainty. "Can we really weather this storm?" she asked, vulnerability threading through her voice like silver. Zaire's gaze held her steady, fierce determination glinting in the light. "We can weather anything, Wrenna, as long as you're with me." The future hung before them like an unturned page, electric with possibility. Scene 18, a shrouded threat. The moon hung heavy and low in the evening sky, casting ghostly shadows across the expansive courtyard of Vanderbilt Manor. In the study's rich golden light, the scent of aged parchment mixed with the warm aroma of freshly brewed tea. The atmosphere was thick with unspoken tension, like a storm just waiting to break. Wrenna Vanderbilt leaned against the oak desk, fingers tracing the edge of a delicate porcelain cup, her heart racing in time with the ticking clock that filled the silence. "Do you think loyalty holds more weight than safety?" Zaire Vellore asked, his voice low, deliberate as he crossed the room. His presence swept through the air, charming yet menacing, like a whisper of secrets cloaked in the scent of cedar and smoke. Wrenna's breath hitched slightly, a mix of fear and desire dancing in her chest. She caught his gaze, those deep eyes flickering with ambition, darkness lurking just beneath the surface. "I want to believe it does." "But," her words faltered, glancing away as doubt crept in. Zaire stepped closer, the warmth radiating from him palpable, almost magnetic. "But what?" he pressed, his tone insistent yet softening. "But what does that loyalty cost?" she clarified, the weight of the question hanging between them like the heavy drapes lining the windows, blocking out the night's chill. She clenched her jaw, trying to maintain the facade of composure, but the vulnerability of her situation gnawed at her resolve. "I don't want you to feel trapped in this, Wrenna." His voice dropped, as if he understood the gravity of their predicament. "This world is dangerous. Too many eyes, too many threats, and you're at the center of it." Wrenna took a calming breath, but her heart beat louder, the rhythm of fear and longing battling for control. She met his gaze, her pulse quickening. I can't just walk away. You know that. Zaire held her stare, something fierce glinting in his eyes. You shouldn't have to. But what if they come for you? The menace of his question loomed like a dark cloud. From the far end of the room, the soft rustle of silk drew their attention. Crystal, Wrenna's steadfast friend, entered with a bouquet of freshly cut peonies, the bright pink blooms glowing against the somber backdrop. I thought these would brighten the mood, she said, attempting to pierce the tension with her radiance. I don't need, Wrenna began, but Crystal waved a hand, cutting through the atmosphere like a knife. Trust me, they make everything a little lighter, she insisted, arranging the flowers in a vase with a flourish, unaware of the quiet storm brewing between Wrenna and Zaire. Zaire shifted uneasily, popping the knuckles of his hands, every tendril of tension reeling back to him. I wish you'd listen, he said. Just consider what I'm asking. Wrenna frowned, shaking her head slightly. You're asking me to choose between love and survival. More like choosing between a future and a death sentence, he replied, his voice taut, like a bowstring ready to unleash its arrow. Then the echo of a door slammed shut somewhere in the mansion, shaking Wrenna from her tumultuous thoughts. She glanced towards the noise, feeling adrenaline surge through her. What was that? It's probably just the wind. Zaire began, hesitating as worry stole his confidence. Simultaneously, the underlying threat became palpable in the air, one they both sensed, wrapping tighter around them. With a desperate urge, Wrenna moved toward him, her voice barely above a whisper. I don't want you to fight them for me. Her hands brushed against the sleeves of his tailored jacket, longing for warmth, reassurance. I just want us to be safe. He captured her hands in his touch both grounding and electric, sending shivers racing up her arms. Then we need to outsmart them. You have to trust me. But what if I can't? She searched his face, her heart aching with fear and something more, an unshakable bond that dared to flourish amidst chaos. With a fervent resolve, Zaire leaned close, their breaths mingling. You're stronger than you think, Wrenna. We'll confront this together. As they stood, inches apart, the world outside faded into a mere whisper. The conflicts, the danger, everything blurred until only the two of them remained, a fragile sanctuary amidst encroaching turmoil. Time slowed, every heartbeat pulsing with a promise unspoken, a silent vow wrapped in the dim light of the study. Wrenna hesitated, but in his eyes she saw the potential for something profound. As they lingered in the moment, the past transformed into a foggy memory, and their shared future glimmered just within reach. I will trust you, Zaire, she finally said, her voice steady yet soft. He smiled subtly, the hint of warmth touching his lips. Then let's show them what it means to be loyal. Scene 19. Unmasking the enemy. The sun hung low over the city, casting long shadows through the towering oaks lining the streets of Biscayne Bay. Their leaves rustled in the sultry breeze, carrying the scent of jasmine and impending rain. Wrenna Vanderbilt stood at the grand window of her late grandmother's mansion, each detail of the house steeped in memory. The ornate moldings and crystal chandeliers seemed to whisper secrets, the air thick with tension as the realities of her new life pressed against her chest like a shroud. Are you sure about this? Wrenna's voice was barely above a whisper, laced with uncertainty as she turned to face Zaire Vellore, whose presence loomed like a storm cloud. His eyes, dark and fierce, held something she had never seen before, determination mixed with a sliver of vulnerability. Wrenna, it's the only way we regain control, Zaire said, the cadence of his voice steady as he unrolled a large map across the dining table, yellowing parchment crumpling under his powerful hands. They won't back down unless we show them we can fight. They stood on opposite sides of the imposing oak table, its polished surface reflecting the tension charged between them. Wrenna stepped closer, examining the web of markings on the map, each symbol a dot in the dangerous game they were playing. Her pulse quickened, but so did a knot of jealousy. You're not the only one who's capable of making a decision, Zaire. This is my fight, too. He looked up, an arch in his brow. Your fight. Wrenna, they don't play by the same rules we do. One misstep and what? I'll get myself killed? She shot back, crossing her arms, a fearless defiance igniting her features. The moments of silence between them crackled with the weight of unsaid truths, the air alive with electricity as if the very walls held their breath. Zaire raked a hand through his hair, taking a step back, as if her words had struck a nerve. This isn't just about you. It's about everything. Everything? Wrenna scoffed, her voice barely concealing the tremor of emotion. What about my life? My choice? There was a softness layered beneath her bravado, an acknowledgement of the chaos swirling around them. They were teetering on the edge of something monumental, a blend of danger and desire. The tension snapped like a taut string as Zaire advanced, closing the distance, his presence commanding, yet magnetic. You don't understand the implications. I'm trying to protect you, Wrenna. But at what cost? She countered, their eyes locked in an unyielding standoff. The room, filled with the rich aroma of brewing coffee, was suddenly too small, suffocating with the weight of everything said and unsaid. His tone softened instinctively. I won't let anyone hurt you. I can't. Why do you think I'm so frail? You don't give me enough credit. I'm not just a victim waiting to be saved. He took a slow breath, the fierce flame of her spirit igniting something deep within him. If I push too hard, you'll pull away. But I can't lose you. Not like this. The confession hung between them like a fragile thread ready to snap. In a moment that felt orchestrated by the universe itself, Wrenna stepped even closer, her heart racing. You need to understand that I have my own strengths, Zaire. I want to stand with you, not behind you. He searched her eyes, his dark gaze not just piercing, but searching for a connection that stirred something raw within them both. They stood on the precipice of a shared understanding, a dance of vulnerability that had the power to either bind them together or tear them apart. Just then, a crash sounded from the hallway, reverberating through the mansion like thunder, pulling them from their moment. They both jumped, adrenaline spiking as Wrenna's heart thundered alongside the noise. Zaire immediately turned, body tense, senses alert. Stay here, he commanded, his voice low and grave, tension flowing back into his posture. Are you serious? Wrenna's voice sliced through his command, resolve hardening. I'm not going to hide while you confront a threat. Wrenna, no Zaire, she interrupted, determination flooding her stance as she stepped alongside him. I'm not going to be on the sidelines anymore. With a look that spoke volumes, a silent agreement formed. They would either face their fears together or falter apart. Then let's do this, Zaire said, an intensity burning in his eyes. As they moved towards the sound, the warmth of their earlier confrontation simmered to life anew, pulsating with energy that neither fully understood yet. Every moment lay poised, a delicate balance of fear, strength, and the promise of something deeper blooming amidst chaos. Scene 20. The standoff. Wrenna stood in the grand entryway of her grandmother's mansion, the wallpaper a faded floral pattern that whispered stories of a bygone era. The air was thick, with the scent of old wood and the faint tang of rain-soaked earth filtering through the slightly ajar front door. Gray clouds loomed ominously outside, a reflection of the tornado swirling within her heart. Today felt like a truce before an inevitable storm. Why did you have to involve yourself in my life, Zaire? She spat, her fingers curling into loose fists at her sides. You had no right. Zaire leaned against the doorframe, his dark silhouette a stark contrast to the delicate pastel room. His presence, commanding yet restrained, filled the space with tension. I did what I had to do to protect you, Wrenna. There are forces at play that you don't understand. His voice was firm, but there was an undertone of urgency that hinted at his concern. Wrenna shook her head, resisting the fire that threatened to consume her. Protect me? By dragging me into your world? She pointed outside, where the wind whipped the trees into a frenzy. This isn't just about us anymore. You're endangering everything. Or perhaps it's you endangering everything by refusing to see the truth. Zaire pushed himself off the doorframe, his sharp gaze cutting through the rising darkness of the storm. He moved closer, each footfall echoing in her chest like an ominous drum. They won't stop until they have what they want, and that includes you. As the first drops of rain began to pelt the pavement, Wrenna crossed her arms defensively. I don't need your protection if it means losing myself. Just then, a distant sound reverberated, a low rumble that shook the very foundation of the mansion. Wrenna's heart raced. What was that? Zaire's eyes narrowed, the tension evolving into something alive and pulsing. Stay inside. He turned sharply, moving toward the door. We have a problem. Wrenna followed him, adrenaline soaring. No, you're not leaving me out here alone. Wrenna, this isn't a fairy tale. I can't protect you if you insist on playing heroine. He glanced back at her, his jaw tight. Like it's any easier for me to just stand by while you throw yourself into danger? She was at his side now, bold in her defiance, feeling a seductive thrill in their heated exchange. If we're going to face this, we do it together. The storm unleashed itself fully at that moment. The winds howled as rain pelted down, transforming the serene landscape into a chaotic blur of gray and green. But the very atmosphere crackled, not just with weather, but with the tension of unresolved feelings, raw emotion lacing the air between them, like an electric charge. Zaire paused, their faces mere inches apart, his breath warm against her skin despite the chill of the storm. You're making this harder than it has to be. I'm done avoiding it. Wrenna closed the distance, her voice dropping to a whisper. It's already too complicated. We're already too complicated. The storm swelled and crashed around them, drowning out their words, but the rest of the world faded as they stood there. Wrenna's heart danced with fear and a strange exhilaration. The closer they got, the deeper the stakes rose. I'm not losing you, Zaire murmured, his eyes flickering with intensity as he cupped her face in his hands. Not to this, not ever. Then let's face it together, she responded breathlessly. Just as their moment reached its peak, a loud crash shattered the air, the sound of shattering glass echoing from the back of the house. Both of them snapped into action, instinct overriding the intimacy of the moment. We have to go, Zaire declared with urgency, gripping her hand, his touch grounding her as they prepared to face whatever horrors awaited them. Zaire, Wrenna called, her heart racing not only from fear but from the emotional tide that churned between them. Promise me. I promise, Wrenna, he said, his eyes fierce, that we will fight, together. With that, they launched themselves into the storm, propelled by love and the chaos of their intertwined fates. The world outside remained a tumultuous cacophony, but unified, they braced for the battle ahead. Scene 21. Dark secrets exposed. The heavy air in Wrenna's grand studio clung to their skin like damp fog, the smell of turpentine and unfinished paint thick around them. Sunlight filtered through the dusty windows, casting ethereal patterns across vibrant canvases that had once been a joyful reflection of her spirit. Now they stood amidst the remnants of a recent battle, tension crackling like electricity between them. Why didn't you tell me? Wrenna's voice trembled, barely rising above the whisper of the ceiling fan. Her hands were fists at her sides, fingertips digging into her palms as if grounding herself amidst chaos. Zaire leaned against the doorframe, his arms crossed, jaw clenched tight enough to show the tension etched into his muscular frame. I didn't think you could handle it. His gaze darted to the large canvas behind Wrenna, an abstract storm of blues and reds, yet his focus lingered on her, the woman he had both admired and feared since their paths crossed. Handle what? She shot back, incredulity piercing her tone. The fact that you were the one pulling strings behind my recovery? It's not just that, Zaire. You made decisions for me while I was lost, and now I see the truth. Outside, the distant rumble of thunder seemed to echo the turmoil brewing within them, a dark force threatening to burst through. Wrenna turned away, not wanting him to see the hurt in her eyes, the flickering doubt about whether she even knew him anymore. His breath caught in his throat, a mix of desperation and anger. I did it for you. Everything I did was to protect you. The heat in his voice was more than just frustration. It was something deeper, a plea hidden beneath the gravel of his words. Wrenna could feel the pulse of betrayal reverberating through her chest. And what about what I wanted? Or do I not get a say in my own life? She spun around, their eyes locking. Hers flashed with indignation, while his burned with a wild darkness, the kind that turned his adorable dimples into a dangerous weapon. You think I didn't want to tell you? He said, stepping forward, intensity radiating from him. I wanted you to see me as something other than a monster. But now, seeing you look at me like that, I can't bear it. Another clap of thunder echoed outside as Wrenna's defenses started to crack. She tilted her head, searching his face, wanting to believe him despite the tangled web of deceit. You think you're some kind of savior, keeping me in the dark? The world I live in doesn't allow for light, Wrenna. If you only knew the stakes. He moved closer, reaching out a hand as if trying to bridge the growing chasm between them. I tried to keep you out of it, out of harm's way. By lying? By using your power to manipulate everything in my life? Her voice softened, raw and exposed. What about me? Felt any sympathy for the mess I was in? Silence blanketed the room, the flare of their argument momentarily extinguished by the weight of vulnerability. He inhaled sharply, the fight flooding from him, replaced by a storm of confusion and regret. Fists unfurling, he rubbed a hand over the back of his neck. I thought you'd be safer not knowing. I thought. There was a hesitation, deep regret in his gaze as he leaned closer still, the tension rippling with unspoken desperation. I don't know if I can forgive you. The words slipped from her as a whisper, heavy with resonance. Then let me show you how I feel, he said earnestly, stepping even closer, the breach between them closing like a canopy, poised to brighten the moment. Please. Wrenna's heart raced, uncertainty hanging in the tender air. She felt the warmth radiating from him, an electric promise of something tangible, raw, and honest. The way he looked at her now wasn't the facade of the crime boss. It felt more like a man laid bare vulnerable, earnest, and full of yearning.